So good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Sunday service and my message this morning. I am Rev G, or Reverend George Stewart, and I welcome our friends on Facebook, who we welcome you to join us this morning, and we certainly welcome your support. You're welcome to join us at cslboston.org and give a donation to help keep this ministry alive and active and awake here in Massachusetts. So today, we're following still in the global message of the organization. Centers for Spiritual Living's global message is, in 2017, is a value-based living. It's based upon the shared values of the greater organization. This month, April, is about transformation and evolution. Anybody up for that? Yeah, right. Yes, absolutely. We all are. And today, I'm here to speak to you about 99 years of private lessons. 99 years. Think about that. So this talk is based very strongly on the book Love and Law. Love and Law was published by United Church of Religious Science back in the day in 2001. They were all the unpublished teachings of Ernest Holmes. And it's a wonderful book. It has a lot of great stuff in it. And that's what this talk is based about today, is around the ideas that were brought forth in this book. This book is a compilation of his lectures, his private lessons from 1918, so thus the 99 years of private lessons, right? And a lot of them are the private lessons. Can you imagine being his first student, getting his private lessons? It must have been awesome, right? So today, what I want to talk to you about today is the staying power of Ernest's message, how important and valid it is today. And again, the importance of this message now, today. It's amazing how these teachings, though brought forward in the early 1800s and 1900s, all of these teachings of New Thought, that they still have such a relevance today because they're talking about basic spiritual truths that have always been there. Ernest saw then that we are powerful beyond our imagination. Now, do we always feel that way? No. But when we can remember that, we're opening up the channels for our higher good. So I want to start first with the staying power of Ernest's message. Again, the book Love and Law, which was basically his early writings that were based upon his early lessons. He actually was working in the city offices of Venice Beach, California, and his boss saw a book on his desk. He was reading some Troward work, and his boss saw it on his desk, and he was like, "Oh, do you read that?" And Ernest shared with him in all of his enthusiasm, because he was always digging into books and he loved it. And that began his journey, really, of his teaching of this belief system. Because his boss said, "Well, I have some friends at the Metaphysical Library in Los Angeles, and they'd love for you to come talk about that. Would you be willing to do that?" And it went from there. And his first talk at the Metaphysical Library paid his rent. It was 25 cents a person that they charged to get into that talk, and it paid his rent. And it grew to fill the Wiltern and many other large theaters in the Los Angeles area. So it was a teaching that was being called for at the time. It was something new and exciting, and yet it's really based on ancient spiritual truths, philosophies, modern science, things like that. So the early beginnings that were shared in this book are really the beginnings of our early classes. He was creating a teaching. It was to be just a teaching. But most folks said, "Well, we love the teaching, but we don't want to go to our old churches. We want to come here on Sunday." So Ernest was pushed into creating a greater space so that people could come and hear the message every day, and not just on certain days, like when they went to class or went to it was actually the Religious Science Institute, I think, originally in its early days. So Ernest could see the validity and the power of this teaching beyond the times he lived in. Now imagine in 1918, wasn't too many more years before the Depression, the crash. And Ernest Holmes was abundant and prosperous through that period of time in his life. When most people, the collective conscious, which we heard in Vicky's beautiful reading, that collective consciousness was believing that it was bad and you couldn't make it, and it was horrible because it was all based upon what people saw in the real world. But Ernest was going deeper. Ernest was saying, no, it's more than that. It's more than that. That's just the outer expression. It's beginning within. It's beginning in, as Jesus said, the kingdom within. That's where the divine resides in each of us, because we're each individualized expressions of that one mind. So what Ernest did for us is he synthesized these beautiful spiritual truths, ancient wisdom, modern science, philosophy, and these teachings transcend time. These teachings, as a matter of fact, science is just now catching up with what Ernest was talking about then. Quantum physics is really the creative process that Ernest Holmes has taught. And that creative process is that we are creating our reality. I always like to say, if your life sucks right now, there's one person who's always present. You. So guess what? You can suck it up. Or you can make it better. So make it better. Make it better, because that's what we're here for. We're here to express the infinite and the divine in every possible way that we can. So the staying power of this continues to be relevant today as it was in his time. It really is. I mean, it's a powerful reality to recognize that he saw things that transcend time and space. Because the divine transcends time and space. It doesn't experience time and space. We dropped into a body. And when we dropped into a body, we started to experience duality. Because we separated ourselves from the oneness. So, Ernest says, the time will come when we deal more and more with the absolute, but we approach that by degrees. Is that not true for most of us?
Yeah.
You know, I like to say that like when we came here, we remembered everything of the infinite, and then as time went on and the human reality started to affect us as babies, you know, no, right? Don't do that. You'll burn yourself. You'll hurt yourself. All of these things. We started to separate from that. We started doing degree steps away from the divine. We were stepping back away from the divine. And then as we get older, there's something within us. It never really dies, does it?
No.
Does our spiritual desire ever really die? I think there's always something there calling us. I like to call it the cracks or the glimpses that we get along our life journey. And those happen all the time. And I'll tell you more about that at the end. So he's talking about taking steps towards the divine, towards our reconnection with our true self. And that's what it is. I always say it took you tons of baby steps to get away from it. Now take those baby steps back. And sometimes you'll get a quantum leap. Anybody ever had a quantum leap? Yeah? And it's like, holy moly, this is great. I'm back. And then something happens and you go, oh, it's all gone again. Anybody ever done that? Yeah, right, we've all been there, right? It's so easy to get swirling up in the humanity and the world that we live in. So the absolute is the timeless reality, or the infinite, the divine, the God or the goddess. This is the originating intelligence behind everything. That's what Ernest was saying. That's what Ernest was teaching us. He was telling us these things. That is why his message is as valid today as in his time. Because he synthesized these great teachings that had been moving forward. Everything that we studied in ministry school was the mystical beliefs of all of the different religions. Because the mystics were saying the same thing. The mystics have always been saying the same thing. And they didn't have dogma. They didn't have requirements. They had an understanding of a deeper experience of the divine. And that's what we're about. Anybody want that here? Right? That's what we come for, to feel that deeper beingness, to feel those glimpses more often, more continuously, because we've all had those in our life. I know I have in many times. So what I want to move on to now is that there's an importance in this message now. There's a major importance in this message right now. And I just want to share with you, this is a philosopher and theologian of the 16 and 1700s, Emanuel Swedenborg. And he said, oops, sorry, this is Ernest Holmes' quote. I missed this one. Let's go to the Ernest Holmes quote. You will find your word has the amount of power, the amount of intelligence you put into it, and it has creative power according to the amount of absolute conviction and the impulse of love which is behind it. Thus, love and law. Love and law. Because the law is automatic. We need to come from the love. That's the important thing. So now I'll go to Emanuel Swedenborg. Again, he was a philosopher and a theologian of the 16 and 1700s. As a matter of fact, there's a Swedenborgian church in Boston. And he said, before anything is brought back into order, it is quite normal for it to be brought first into a kind of confusion, of virtual chaos. In this way, things that fit together badly are severed from each other, and when they have been severed, then the Lord arranges them in order. The same message. Yeah, that's the good news, right? That is indeed the good news, because it's true. How many in their life have felt a lot of chaos before we fell into a realization that it's like, in that chaos, there was something amazing happening.
Amen.
Right? We have been lifted through that chaos. So, does anybody see in the world today any confusion or chaos? Yeah, we all see it, right? We all see it, we all experience it, right? And it feels like, even, I mean, for some of us I know it feels like more right now than ever before. Which I'm sure Ernest thought the same thing during the Korean conflict, during the Depression, during all of those times. Those were just as big at that time. But do we want to buy that message that we're hearing out there? No, we don't. We don't want to buy that message because that's not the truth. The truth is, what Emanuel Swedenborg is talking about, that this is the chaos, and in that chaos, the universe is bringing forth a higher and greater expression. Because there's perfection in that, like the chaos theory, which is a new modern science, look at that. That there's something, that there's order within that chaos. And that's crazy, isn't it? It's awesome. It's crazy. So, when we talk about this, I always like to say that what's happening right now, and I thank 45, I refuse to use the name, I thank 45 for bringing us the opportunity to awake the sleeping giant. There is a giant majority that is silent, a quiet majority that is silent. And what has happened is, it has been awakened. Now, we're going to have some talks here around Sister Giant, which was the world's largest women's march in the world, not just in the U.S., in the world. And that group continues. And I'm so blessed that we have Leanne and Carol who are going to share that with us in the next few weeks. I know we have some dates as to when that's happening. But we'll be watching some of the videos of a group that met after the Women's March in a special conference. And that is going to be really awesome because it's going to be our place as spiritual individuals in this world of Politico.
Yes.
Because there's things in the world that it's time for us in our way to step out and be a part of that. So if you want to know more about that, you definitely want to attend those. And we will be announcing those as they're coming up. So I know that we've got the announcements today as to when those will be coming up. I think it's going to be 3 evenings. Right. That we're going to be having the video and discussion afterwards. I'm really excited about that because there's always been a part of me that said, what is my place in that as a spiritual person? And I feel like this is it, because Mary Morrissey is involved in
Mary
that.
Morris is on it. Bernie Sanders is there.
Bernie Sanders.
Beautiful speakers. Lots of
Beautiful
really
speakers and lots
great-
of really positive stuff. And a place for us to be in the chaos, and yet in our place of peace and harmony.
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
Because that's what it's about, right? That's what we want to experience. So anybody ever experience any confusion or chaos in their personal life?
Not me.
Never. Well, my hands that aren't raised, I know you are like bullshit. I'm calling bullshit.
Done.
Anybody remember that game? Anyway. So it's exciting to recognize that in all of this confusion, we need to hold tight to our teaching.
Sure.
This is when we need to really hold tight to what Ernest brought us, because that's going to give us a foundation. That's going to allow us to have the harmony in the chaos, to find the peace in the storm, to be what I love the story of, Jesus rebuking the storm. It's like, hey, I'm sleeping here, leave me alone, right? I mean, really, when you think about it, that was it. It was like he was sleeping, and there's this storm, and he's like, hey, stop! I'm sleeping. Now, did you ever hear it that way? But think about it. He knew that he could say that. And whether the storm stopped or not, he found his peace. He claimed his peace. So it doesn't necessarily mean the storm has to stop, but we're claiming our peace. And that's what Ernest taught us to do. That's what Ernest gave us the tools to do. So our work is on ourselves, and to keep our minds clear and focused and on the truth that Ernest gave us. We have to continue to see a world that works for everyone and all of creation. We talk about this here. That is the Center for Spiritual Living's global vision. And when they first came out with that global vision, a lot of the ministers said, what are you talking about? This is impossible. Look at this world. And the Home Office said, yes, look at this world and see that. So even our ministers, we get out of alignment.
No.
Oh, we do. Oh, we do. So, but it's beautiful, because then we remind each other who we are. That's what we do here. We remind each other who we are. Who are you really? Behind that veil of confusion and frustration and all of that, who are you really? And that's what we remind each other. And when I can't hold it for myself, I know that there's one who will hold it for me. And that's the beauty of having a community of this philosophy. Because I wanted to believe in the power of positive thinking when I was young, but we didn't always find a lot of positive folks out there. So it's good to be in a place where we have this message and we can remind each other of who we are. And we can move into that greater place. So something new is emerging in the world. And we, with our understanding of love and law, can foster a new age. Isn't that a nice thought? We can foster a new age. And we look at this room and we may say, oh, but there's so few of us. But that's not the truth. The consciousness in this room is huge. The consciousness that is going on in this room is huge. And it is expanding beyond these walls. The love that is felt right here is what carries us into that next day, and that next day, and that next day. And then we become stronger and we find our place in the world. And if the world is too tough on us, we come back home, where we can be reminded of who we are. Because the world can be tough, right? We've all been to I like to call it the College of Hard Knocks. And I'm all set with the College of Hard Knocks. I'm not doing that anymore. It got me here, and I'm good with that, and now I'm ready to step forward into something even better. So we're ready to, Ernest Holmes told us, we are on the borderline of a new experience. And we're always on that borderline. We are always on that borderline. So Ernest Holmes saw then that we are powerful beyond our imagination. That's my last point that I want to bring forward. And he did see that. He saw the truth for the people that he was doing these private lessons with before they could see it themselves. He held that truth. I remember a story of Ernest Holmes, and I don't know whether the man is still living or not, but a mother who had a son who had had a terrible motorcycle accident, and all the doctors said he would be nothing but an invalid all of his life. He'd be a vegetable all of his life. And the mother refused to accept that as a truth. And the mother kept looking and looking, and she found Ernest. And she went to Ernest Holmes, and she said, my son, I've been told this by the doctors. This is what they told me about my son. I don't believe it. I don't accept it. Will you help him? Will you work with him? And Ernest said, yes, I will. This man, at the last time that I knew, and I've seen him talk, he was a minister in this movement. And the last thing I saw him, they did a video of him. He was 92 years old.
Wow.
And as clear as day. As clear and as perfect as day. This is what this teaching is about. It's about healing our lives, maybe in the physical realm. Because that's what this all came from, because doctors couldn't help people. But we can do that. But what happens is, we get caught in the race consciousness. Like, anybody watch all of these ads for the latest medications? And the side effects? I'm like, I don't even want to know. Right? It's like, yeah, a side effect death. I love that one. It's like a side effect death. That's a little more than a side effect. Just a little more.
It's purple, I don't care.
But Ernest said, you can take the pill and do prayer with it. But he said, you do the prayer first, and then, if that doesn't work, you take the pill, but you do the prayer. You've got to see the divine in the medication. So all this stuff on TV, because of disclosure requirements, if I was to read all of that and then take that, and by that consciousness as I'm taking it, it's not going to bring forward the good. So it's really important to be in that place, and that's what Ernest was teaching us.
So it would bring forward, to bring forward the side effects if you took it in that frame of mind, it would bring forth the side effects as opposed to...
It's very likely.
Oh.
Yeah, it's very likely, because they've done that with placebo tests.
Oh,
with the
okay.
placebo tests that, it has all these things and the side effects, and people get the side effects, and it was a sugar pill. So, there's even power, because you've seen people get cured with placebo effect, right? I mean, people have been cured with that. So this is what we're talking about. This is the miracle. This is the magic. So, Ernest Holmes said, your final emancipation will be written by your own hand. Thought by your own mind, recognized as your own birthright. Think about that. It will be written by your own hand. Are you ready to write a new reality?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I am too. It's time to write a new reality. And where does it? It begins with the thought in our mind. So it's beginning with a thought in our mind, and we are recognizing it as our birthright. Does God withhold anything?
No.
Thank you. God, the divine, whatever we want to call it, it doesn't withhold anything, but it is up to us to do the work to remove the blocks that limit the expression of this higher good that we desire in our lives. And so here we have the opportunity to expand into that idea by all of the different classes that we offer. We offer classes that help us to expand our consciousness, to free ourselves of limited ideas, to open ourselves into greater possibilities. And that's what we do here. And Ernest Holmes began creating these classes in 1918. 1918. And these classes have evolved and changed and grown. At one point he had a correspondence course that you could actually order a correspondence course to learn about the science of mind. And that's how he grew this teaching throughout the world. He was on the cutting edge of technology. He had a radio program. He had something. If you go online, you can actually find a YouTube video of him speaking,
Oh, okay.
and it's awesome. You've seen it,
Yes.
isn't it awesome?
It is awesome.
It is awesome. And this man was not demonstrative. I mean, he was a very quiet, unassuming person, but people were mesmerized by what he was telling them because he was telling them something that their deeper inner being already knew. And that's what we're doing here. We're awakening the truth of who we are. Are we great?
Yes.
Yes.
Are we wonderful?
Yes.
Are we powerful?
Yes.
Yes, we are. And that's what Ernest Holmes saw. That's what Ernest Holmes believed. So when we find ourselves in limitation and lack and separation, where do we go?
But then,
Within.
Oh, within.
Or to each other. Because I'll tell you, sometimes within doesn't always work. You know, it's like, oh, I'm going to go within. And then all those little things keep going, right? The little brain keeps going, all that monkey mind, right? So that's when I call somebody. I call my practitioner and I say, life sucks! And the practitioner says, I hear you, but I know your truth. And that's what we need to hear. And that's what we teach each other here. I would like to say that our rough edges are smoothed in spiritual community because we're bumping up against each other and softening the rough edges. That's that chaos. But that chaos is bringing forth the order, the beauty, and the perfection. Ernest had a lot of things that he offered us, and I'm so grateful for those. So, what I'd like to share with you is some of my story around this whole idea of this. You know, I talked earlier about the glimpses. I remember when I was a kid, I was like probably 7 or 8 years old. We had a mountain place that we went to outside of Los Angeles where we lived, and it was this little mountain community. We had two little wooden trailer and a porch, and that's where we stayed. And we had this big Kingsford Chevy station wagon, 1960 something. So you know, it was a boat. You know, I remember that I couldn't ride in the back because I would get motion sickness because the whole back end shimmied. But so this big boat. So we drove up there, and we have to go back on a dirt road that's like 3/4 of a mile back from the main road, which is paved. And we would drive up in there, right? So we went up there, and my parents were like, well, it's kind of, there could be snow, but like, we're going to know that there's not going to be snow. Well, this 7-year-old wanted snow. And I wanted snow to sled on and play in and make snowmen. So that night, I had a place, I had a revelation. I said, I can ask for snow. I can ask for snow. Anybody done that when you're a kid?
I still do
Right.
it. Don't throw anything
Like when you're a
at me.
kid, we're so great. It's like we're still so close to the infinite that we kind of like get all that infinite possibility, right? Our imagination is powerful. Again, like Ernest said, that our powerful imagination. So at 7 years old, I wished for snow. I knew it would happen. Next morning, 6 inches of snow, and my parents were not happy. Because we had no chains for the station wagon. But as a kid, I just wanted the joy. You know. And the parents, what did they do? They got all whacked out about it, right? But if they had been more in our teaching, where would they have been with that? Grateful. Would have been grateful for the fact that, you know, well, first of all, my kid is a powerful manifester, right? And second, that they would know that everything would work out, and it did. You know, it warmed up that day, the roads cleared enough that we could drive out, and we were fine with that evening to go home. So there was no problem with that. So that was the beginning, and I've shared my story around, you know, how I found mime and started doing mime and so forth. I was blessed in that mime teaching because I started to teach mime to others. And the story that I want to share is around a young boy. I had like these 2 young boys who took the class. You know, it was like 3 or 4 older women and these 2 young boys who took the class, because for me, mime was for all ages. I had a 99-year-old student once, and it was fun. It was great, and they were so open and willing to do that. So, but the one boy was a behavior problem, and the mother had warned me, I'm really concerned about my son. And I said, okay, well, thank you. I appreciate the information. Now, this is before I had this teaching. This is before I understood this teaching. But there was a part of me that was still in that window of the light, of knowing that there is good in everyone. Because I had not been jaded completely by the world by then. And so, as I watched the children, as I watched these two boys interact, the one was very expressive and, you know, squealy and carry on and crazy, and the other one was more, you know, controlled and stayed. And the one who was controlled and stayed was very angry and very venomous towards this other boy. You know, and this other boy was, for lack of a better word, very effeminate, you know, which of course, me being gay, I was like, okay, I can understand that, you know, but it was for me a learning experience to say, how do I speak to this other boy who is affected by that energy? And so there was a part of me that just said, you know what, I'm just going to talk to him like an adult. I'm just going to say, sit down and let's have a discussion. So we sat down and we had this discussion, and the words came. What I needed to say came. And I said to him, I said, imagine that everybody in the world was like this boy, and you were the only one like you. How would that feel? And he really thought. And I said, so sometimes we have to be understanding and loving of others no matter how they appear in the world. And it came to me to say that. It just came through me, and I felt so blessed because that 7-year-old experience was somehow still a part of me. That innocence and that knowing, right? And I remember his mother coming to me the next day, calling me on the phone, and she said, I don't know what you did, but you changed my son. And I was so moved by that. I still am to this day, you know. And that kid went on to like do amazing things in his life and to be so accepting of others and to change. All because I took the time to say, first of all, I don't need to talk to you like a kid. I never got that, you know, the whole baby talk thing. What is that all about? You know, but I just sat down and I said, let's just have a conversation. And it shifted that child's life. And it shifted me. Have you ever noticed that when you're able to help someone else, how it shifts you?
Yes.
It changes your life. It changes your heart. We like to say our hearts are always breaking open. Like Reverend Ed and I were so blessed to share in Reverend Sheila Pierce's celebration of life, and it was a party. Big white tent, beautiful, you know, cutlery and music and all of this, because that's what she wanted. She said, you celebrate my life. You know, you can mourn it on your own, but you celebrate my life right now, and it was a celebration. And that's what I want. Not that I'm ready to leave yet. Not ready to go yet. Don't get any ideas. But that's what it's going to be. Because you're vibrating to the next vibration, to the next most awesome experience, whatever that is. And I love that, you know, that's where we can go. So, as we move on with this idea of realizing who we are when we're young, and seeing those glimpses as we move along, we realize how powerful it is to have a community and teaching that can save our lives daily. Because it does. When I can get myself out of the way, when I can get myself out of those limited old ideas, I am blessed. And we're all blessed because we lift each other. And that's what it's about. And that's what's happening with the sleeping giant. The sleeping giant is wakening. And people are connecting. People are coming together. Because grassroots is where the energy is. And that's what's happening is grassroots right now. Because what grassroots, the foundation. And that's what we have here as a foundation. And I feel so blessed in that foundation. I feel so fortunate to have all of this. So, what happened in all of that for me was that I realized that my differentness was my strength. That I was willing to be different than other people. Because in my childhood, there was a lot of folks who were more than happy to tell me I wasn't good enough. I was a fag. I was a this. I was a that. I was all of these things. There's always people out there willing to tell me that. And yet there was a part of me that could cling on to the truth of who I was through all of that and find this. And when I found this, I found my power in my differentness. So find your power in your differentness. Because that's how the universe expresses itself, is individualized with each and every one of us. That we are all individualized, perfect expressions, always. And yes, we can always expand further into our higher good, but we're always perfect, right where we are. And when you can start there, isn't it much easier to realize who you are? I can realize that I'm perfect where I am, but I always have the opportunity to grow. All the time. So I can see in the chaos that there is order. So I can realize that there is order in that chaos. Because that chaos is bringing forward a greater thing. A greater thing in each and every one of us. So in conclusion, what I'd like to say is let's accept this gift of the 99 years of private lessons. Will you accept those with me today?
That's 99 years old.
Use them every day.
Yes.
Find your spiritual practices that lift you.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just words. Always like the deep breath. Just say, God, breathing. Me. Right? And it takes you back to center. You can have peace. You can rebuke the storm. You have the power to rebuke the storm. So do it. And don't be afraid to do it. And when you feel you can't, the phone number for the center is always available. We may not answer it every time, but know that if you leave that message, we'll get back to you. Because that's what we're here for. We are, or Ed and myself are your spiritual leaders, and we are here to help you in those times when you are in your most difficult times. Because we're here to remind you that you are the light, no matter what you're going through. You are always the light. So, let's make every day a glorious day. Will you join me in that?
Okay.
Yes.
Make every day a glorious day. And if I feel like it's not a glorious day, where do I turn? Within or to someone within the community, right? Especially to us. But you have a beautiful practitioner in the back corner, Doreen. She's amazing as well. And she's listed in the website as well, practitioners. And Valerie is available too. Yes. So don't be afraid to reach out. Because we are all here to pray for you. And I love to pray. I love to pray. So let's just join in the affirmation, because I love this affirmation. It's by Reverend Karen Rice, Senior Minister of West Valley CSL, Peoria, Arizona. I choose love this day. I know that love always points me in the best direction, and my conviction swells as I absolutely know this to be true.
Yes.
You agree with me?
Yes.
Accept that?
Yes.
Okay, it'll be on Facebook for those of you who, follow us on Facebook. It'll be on Facebook, so you'll find that slide on Facebook later on this week, or probably, I think it comes out Monday. So it'll come out tomorrow. All right. So, now is the time for our spiritual mind treatment, so if you'll join with me in prayer. So just taking a deep breath and moving within. Move into that space, into that quiet place, into that center where the divine, the infinite, the universal, the Mother, Father, God is felt, and known, and experienced. That heaven within. And the purpose of this treatment today is for each one to accept their 99 private lessons. expand and grow and absolutely be the light that they are meant to be in the world. So I recognize and I realize that there is this one infinite universal source, this one creative substance, this one power, this one presence that is all love and all peace and all perfection and all wholeness and all absolute overflowing abundant prosperity and joy. All of these things and more. It is humor, it is creativity, it is peace. Peace that passes all understanding of the human mind. And as I recognize this as the source of everything, for it is experiencing itself in and as and through all of creation, therefore I know that I am an emanation of this divine energy. I am an individualized presence, the hands, the feet, the eyes, the mouth, the heart of the divine in this body form. And as I recognize this for myself, I recognize that for each one in this room, knowing that each one is indeed a blessed expression of that divine perfect wholeness. In that diversity there is unity, not uniformity, but there is unity. And that unity is beautiful. And I recognize that this is not only the truth of each one in this room, but this is the truth of all throughout the cosmos, all throughout the U.S. and the world and beyond. For this infinite expression is expressing itself as a multitude of individualized expressions of itself. And so I am called to see and know the divine in all. And that is my place. And as I recognize my oneness, it is so much easier to see that in the world. So from this place of oneness, I call forth today, in and as and through each one here, a heightened level of absolute expression of who they are. A greater and more glorious expression of the divine in every area of their life. In abundance, in joy, in love, in peace, in perfection, in wholeness. All of this is being revealed right here and right now. And in this strength of claiming that good, the chaos and the fear is melted away. For this power, this presence, this intelligence, as it reveals itself in and as in each one, as each one is lifted into their highest level of being, they rebuke the storm of life and claim their good. I claim that for each one right here and right now. I declare that for each one. For I know that as I realize this for myself, that I shift the consciousness of the greater mind, and in that greater mind it shifts each one and all around me, and all in the world, and all in the cosmos. For this is the power and the belief in the imagination that Ernest spoke of. And so I gratefully accept all of these gifts. I joyously embrace them and love them and know them to be the absolute truth. Knowing that it is always the Mother, Father, God's good pleasure to give the kingdom right here and right now, I claim all of these gifts in gratitude and profound thanksgiving. And with that I know that I can release, I can let go, I can surrender this word. I can hand it over to the creative process, to the universal infinite law of perfection. With all of the love that I have, I release it to the law. And in that law, that love is transformed into physical reality, brought forth into form. For this, or something even more amazing and wonderful. Because I know the divine is always trying to give more. And so I remove any blocks that reside within me to allow that fullness to reveal itself. So letting it go, I say Ashe. Blessed be. Amen. And all women. And together we say, and so it is.